People say to me, I've done my business for decades, I'm not going to jump on this new fad. Well, there are three key reasons why you should think about this.
Thank you, Arif, and I am happy to see all you all here today. I'm in great attendance, so I will introduce Jane, and we didn't have her do her little minute spiel, but I think after she's all done, you will get a better feel for what she is passionate about, and then I will be sure to share her LinkedIn information with you all in our recap tomorrow, as well as Calendly calendar, so if you wanted to schedule some time with her afterwards, you may do so. So Jane Paterson is a professional public speaking coach who takes everyday speakers and transforms them into confident and engaging communicators. She is the owner of One Perfect Speech, works with speakers at all levels to develop their speaking skills so they may grow their career, bring about change, and inspire others. And I have no doubt that that's exactly what she'll be doing with us today. So you can go ahead and take it from here, Jane.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for this opportunity to chat to the group. So quite simply, why should we think about our public speaking skills on a virtual platform? People say to me, I've done my business for decades, I'm not going to jump on this new fad. Well, there are three key reasons why you should think about this. And the first one is the reason we communicate is to convey a message and connect with our audience. We now have this between us, so we need to find a way to work with it. The second thing is this is here to stay. This is not going to go away, even when it's business as usual. It's still going to be here, and a lot of business is going to be carried out on these formats. So it's important we get good at it. And the third point is, even if you don't think you need to adopt or change, your clients can compare. So you can't turn around and say, well, I've done this for 30, 40 years this way. I'm just going to grab my laptop and jump onto it, whatever. Your clients, your customers, and your patients are moving away from you and dealing with a whole lot of other service providers who are doing it well. So why not put yourself in that field? I'm going to break it down into two areas, nonverbal and verbal, equally as important in public speaking. The first thing is camera height. If you do nothing else, try to get your camera at a reasonable eye height. Why? Because in our culture, to look down your nose at someone is a derogatory thing. So you want your camera to be at a reasonable eye height. A little bit higher is more flattering, but just try to not look down at someone. Also, try not to be too close. We don't do that in real life. In the olden times, we never got in people's faces. So aim for about an arm and an arm's half away from you. That way, it's as though you're sitting across a desk or as though you're sitting across a restaurant table. So go for a more natural spacing. The next thing is eye contact. We know as humans, eye contact is critical. Now, it's so disconcerting to be on these things because our instinct is to look at ourselves or to look at other people. Try to train yourself to look into the camera. It's dreadful, but if you get it right, it definitely builds that link. The next thing is handshake. We have lost the handshake, that gracious way of going into an office, shaking a hand, hi Don, hi Mary. We can't do it. So the smile is the new handshake. Make sure when you first join a patient, a client, a customer, even a networking thing, smile. It sounds obvious, but a lot of us are so focused on results, we jump in and we start speaking. Take a minute to smile, say the person's name at the other end, and drop it into the conversation. Body language, critical in public speaking. Be aware of how you're sitting. Just as in face-to-face conversation, you wouldn't have leant, you wouldn't have hunched, you wouldn't have slouched over to speak to somebody. Try not to do it when you're with a customer, a patient, or a client. Try to keep your posture reasonable. You don't have to be stiff and unapproachable, but sit upright. In before times, what we used to do to show we were listening to someone and we were invested in that person, we would mirror their body language. So if they folded their legs, we would fold the legs. We all know this. We can't do that in this time. So if you're with a client and you really want to show you are listening or paying attention, you can lean in, you can tilt your head slightly, not weirdly so, don't repeat it, but it does help bridge that connection. Hand gestures, I'm fine with hand gestures. Couple of points though, if you're going to use hand gestures, you need a reasonable body length to do it. You can't do it real close to the camera. It needs to be close to your chest. And if you're going to use them sparingly and use them slowly. So the first point, the second point, the third point. You can still incorporate if they feel not natural to you, but do remember those tips. All movement, try to restrict it to things that are purposeful. So you reach for a glass of water, you need a pen, you need a piece of paper, but avoid this, avoid this, avoid this. Anything that you're fussing around with, it's going to pull people's eyes away from the speaker and jump onto you. So try to keep yourself still, but in a natural place. If you need to look at notes, that's absolutely fine. But remember the eye contact rule, 60 to 70% in the camera, look down at something important and return. Backgrounds, try to keep your background simple. And when I mean simple, I don't mean you have to have a white wall. Have something that your client, your patient, your customer will look at and be like, oh, I know what that is, and then come back to you. I had a client the other day who said to me, look, I've had people in my office for 30, 40 years, an attorney, and he said, I'm not going to change this background. I'm going to open my laptop and that's it. Yes, but when you have someone in person, you are the bright, shiny object. You move, you speak. So of course they take one look at your bookshelves, your credentials, your, branding, and then immediately they tune that out and come back to you. In a two-dimensional world, we don't do that. As the person speaking, we're still trying to read the credentials on the wall, or I wonder where that photograph was taken. So keep it simple. If you're at a level like Jose and I think Rajiv, then definitely build your branding around that. I mean, that's a great way. Otherwise, I went basic. It's a fake window. You see it, you churn it out, and that's it, you move on. Do consider it though. Verbal. In a verbal sphere, first thing you need to do is you need to slow down. And I'm not, because I'm conscious of the time, but speak slower than you normally would. Why? Because you'll know that in person-to-person communication, we have a myriad amount of clues. We have the person's energy, their body language, their gestures, the tone in the room, the tension. But if the person's behind a camera, they're struggling to keep up with you. So slowing down aids their comprehension. Also, if you're working off a basic laptop microphone like I am, it helps with the tone of your voice if you slow down. I see a couple of chaps here who've got beautiful microphones. That's fantastic. But for the average person, slowing down will do you favors. Right. Concise. We need to be concise. This has become such a problem on air, on these virtual platforms, is that people are rambling, they're digressing, and they're going off point. Why? Because in face-to-face communication, we had all those little hints that we were talking too long. People would shift, people would sigh, people would look away. They might even roll their eyes, but we don't have that. So what happens is we keep talking. Then we make it worse because when we finish speaking, there's dead air and it feels weird with the silence. So what do? We pack in more words, which just keeps it going and going and going. Practice being concise. Put your information up front, say it, and stop speaking. Remember, the goal of communication is clear, concise, and focused. So if you're going to stick with those rules, you're going to communicate better with your audience. You need to live with that pause, no matter how uncomfortable it is. Jargon and buzzwords, kick them out. They clutter up regular communication, and on a virtual platform, they can cause confusion because your person you're speaking to, the patient, the customer, the client, your staff member, they might mishear the buzzword. Then they're going to spend a split second trying to catch up and figure out what you said. Keep your communication clean, spare, and it'll be that much more eloquent. Verbal tics. Verbal tics and crutch words are simply things like, we all do them. In fact, this group, I hardly get everybody here today, but do be aware of them, and particularly when you form a response. If you watch TV tonight, turn on any channel and look at how people respond to questions. So often, regardless of the professionalism or level of intellect, they will preface their answer with two words, I mean. People do this because they're trying to gather their thoughts. So if it happens to you and somebody asks you a question, don't go, just stop, take a breath, gather your thoughts, and continue. The second to last thing is note cards. don't know if you can see, these note cards are my little, it's a classic note cards kids have. These are my little trick. If you're going into a situation with an interview or with a client or anything where you're trying to convey particular points of information and you want to make sure you hit those points and that you don't look away and forget them or don't look away too much, you can just attach them around the lid of your laptop. You can put them on the wall behind your camera and you can refer to them and look back without, I was exaggerating, but without too much loss of eye contact. They really do work well. Last point I want to get to is in terms of physical contact, we can't, as we did in the olden days, put an arm around someone, hi friend, or if you're delivering bad news, rest your hand on someone's shoulder, as we've all done with patients, clients, investors, anybody. So what we need to do is all these points are focused on making that connection as though we were still there in the olden days. And the last little down and dirty trick I want to give you is if you're going to be taking a phone call or giving a very important presentation or something where you feel you really want to come across as authoritative and confident and the adult in the room, consider standing. A phone call standing is very different to a phone call when the phone's on the desk and you're talking like this. And if you're doing a major presentation to investors, raise your camera up and do it standing. I guarantee they will feel the difference. Okay, guys, I hope this all helped. Laura gave you all my information. I'll post it again and just reach out to me on my website and I'm happy to take this further with you, your kids, your friends, your colleagues, anybody. Thanks, guys.
That was really awesome. Sorry, Laura. Did you say
No,
something?
that's okay. I was just going to say thank you. That was fantastic.
Yeah. I noticed a lot of people, including myself, focusing on a few positioning things as you were talking about that. So really well done.